welcome back to another matchup. For the sake of re-recording my audio, I was in the middle of this game and I talked and I realized that at some point my microphone actually unplugged. So here we are again. I hope this time it works, and it does. So for this league, you actually are members, but still you guys submitted a Terra list, which is quite a cool deck, I would say. It's a very fancy commander, a bit overshadowed by the 5-color Terra, because that's obviously the better deck, but no matter what, this one is pretty cool. And I took a list from Emerging Patterns, which goes a bit more into the reanimated direction. The actual reason I took this one was because it features the Broodlord combo that finishes with Pinnacle Monk. It's basically Pinnacle Monk, so the loop goes, you saw in half the Broodlord, and then you search for Pinnacle Monk, Burnt Offering, and this loop creates 1 additional mana for each cycle. So in the end, you will have a leftover Dragon token, which you can saw in half again, to find a Bolt or a Collective Brutality that finishes the game. And I think this combo is pretty cool in comparison to the line that was played back then in Old Rootstein. This was very clunky, very complicated. I think you had like 6 or 7 steps in order to make like 1 or net 1 mana. And this one is much easier. It's not that much of a headache. I think it's cool. I just wanted to try it out, and that's why I choose this pack here with some of the bigger reanimation targets. As you see in my hand, there is an Archon and a Necromancy. Not too bad. Apart from that, I think the deck has quite some cool dynamics. The commander is a bit weak in regards to, you play the card, it mills some cards into your graveyard. Apart from that, not much happens. You have to connect in order for the ability to do something, and you're very much open to any kind of interaction. So yeah, she gets flying. That's good. Doesn't always help. It's not the same as with Vegeta, for example, that you just have to deal damage. No, you have to deal combat damage in order to use the trigger or get the trigger. Here I'm playing against Yamezina Bunker, however it's pronounced, but one of the more dedicated players on MTGO. So this is definitely not an easy matchup. Overall, I think my league went 3-2 again, same as with the bird. So not too bad. I mean, I was expecting it to be a bit better than with the bird. The bird was, pretty underwhelming overall. Despite I managed to win 3 games, but sometimes it's also a bit dependent on which decks you face and how experienced your opponents are and whatsoever. So here, trying to resolve my Terra. The plan is to get this Archon into the graveyard somehow, to reanimate it with the Necromancy. If not, I have the Fury. Maybe I can find a pitch for the Fury. That would be a cool combination for next turn, maybe. To just... Okay, Duras, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, that's the intuition. Probably just wanting... he just wants to have some information, sorry. Very late in the evening, and as I said, I re-record this in order for you guys to have a video tomorrow. Actually, for me now it's tomorrow, for you it's today. But yeah, obviously I give them the Duras, and it finds a Necromancy. Could have also chosen the Inquisition, would be the same outcome. But usually this one is the most restrictive. Since the creature count is quite high in this list, you can have a look down in the description if you're curious. I will give this list another shot in paper. Not this exact, not the exact same list, but maybe more in the mid-rangey direction without the Broodlord plan and whatsoever, and none of the big reanimation targets. But I think also the fact that in Love and Eclipse there will be these new elementals. Those come with 3 power and they have certain ETB abilities. If you paid the mana, like either of the 2 pips that you can pay for those elementals. And so that's a way to balance these types of effects, I would say. But, there was a Dimir spoiled already, and I think an Orzhov one. So I would expect a full cycle. Maybe a Rakdos and Boros one is coming for this deck too. Here I have a Priest activation into Archon, previously getting rid of the board with the help of Fury, otherwise would have not worked. I could also get back Fury, but getting back Archon is definitely the power play here, I would say. Especially because the activation of Priest can't be countered by spells. It can be countered by spells, but not like as a direct counter spell. So you have to have a stifle for it. Arcane Signet does not do the job. There could be. What could it be? Otarara is on field. There could be things like, Cryptic Command, for example. That does the job. Especially bouncing Archon is not too bad. And now I don't. Sadly, I can't put it back in my graveyard. I mean, I have the looting, which I can use. Probably playing the land after resolving the looting would be better. There's not really something to play around. The Burnt Offering I can definitely discard. Pinnacle Monk is already exiled with the Fury, so that's not really doing anything here anymore. The problem with the Broodlord combo in this deck is that usually you want to have a command zone that does something with the combo pieces. Pinnacle itself is a land at worst, which is fine. Burnt Offering is a card you can sometimes abuse in combination with the elementals, with Solitude, Fury, whatsoever. That's cool, but it doesn't happen too often. Shouldn't talk that fast, maybe. Not in a hurry. Yeah, nonetheless, Saw in Half is a card you would like to have something like a Kefka, for example, in Command Zone that does a little bit more than Terra, because Terra basically does nothing with additional ETBs and stuff. So, yeah, let's see. The voice. We have a hasty Kefka. My opponent cannot afford to attack, since I have the Flage in the graveyard, and also because they have an interest in blocking Terra, I would say. They should not attack here. If they decide to do that, they will definitely go down to 4, and then if I have something to surprisingly win the game, Detective Phoenix is one way. Now all of a sudden I have a hasty Flage, which definitely does something. Exiling the troll is probably not the way to go, considering the fact that I can simply take this one for the bestow ability of the Phoenix. And yeah, I think that was a very good draw. My opponent was not too happy about that. Overall, this was a pretty cool game, I have to say. Lots of fun. Let me know, guys, whenever, currently I do it this way. I will play a league and I will show you the most interesting game. because sometimes you have players that are not that experienced and the games are not really interesting at all, more or less like easy games to finish. Sometimes you're getting smashed by tier 0 decks or whatsoever, so that goes in the other direction. Mm, I think this way it's cool. I can try out a couple of interesting commanders, and yeah. Let me know if you have any other ideas or suggestions for that. If you're interested in playing MTGO yourself, definitely check out our discount code whenever you're using Mana Traders. It's the service that we're using for more than a year, and I'm very happy with that. And as you know, on this channel, we only promote things that we're using ourselves and that we're really believing in. So, not simply something to sell here. I've also, and I will link this, I forgot it last time, but I should just add that in addition. Mm, I've done like a very short introduction video to how to start with Magic Online. Not really a detailed version of how to actually play, but it's more about how to start and how to get going. Missing the land drop and Tainted Pact end of turn. My plan was to find the land drop. Unfortunately, my opponent has a Force Spike available. So the FOMO could find the land. I can get rid of the Unburial Rights. Drawing a Living Death. Yeah, I mean, I discarded the Chaos Defiler and the Fanatic earlier. Maybe the keep was overall a bit too optimistic. Then again, I think the lineup is pretty nice. I mean, I have a Bombardier. I have 2 removal spells. Living Death in the later game could do some things. Yeah. And now he symbolizes or signals a counterspell. My mana situation is a bit awkward. I could try to bolt the frog and bait my opponent into discarding 2 cards. But then I don't have the mana to do that in the same, like, as the swords in the same turn. My opponent is actually doing this. I'm a bit surprised that I choose to do that. I think my thought process back then was I have a safe interaction for the frog, and I definitely want to keep that. Now they cannot attack. I cannot block my FOMO at least. And since I have Delirium active, I get to attack twice. So there is an artifact creature, sorcery, and an instant. Of course, I get back another card this turn. So far, I'm winning the race, quote unquote. I mean, if the Psychic Frog stays at its size, and again, a missing or a missed land drop. So we're going for the known exchange. And then I will probably try to get rid of the frog whenever they cast Kefka. I can also do it now. There's still the risk of them having an interaction spell. And that's actually a pretty good Sovereign's Ransom, to be fair. It has everything they ask for. Galvanic Discharge. Land drops are not too bad. I mean, the land drop is not super valuable, but whatever pile I choose, Boxer could go into graveyard. Pretty tricky, I think. So this one would mean, okay, that the first Croxa cast doesn't really do anything. Yeah, and it's rather taking the hidden pile. So it seems that FOMO was not enough of a threat. Probably casting Kefka now. There's no reason to not do that. Oh no, never mind. Okay, they have enough mana to escape it. Yeah, I think by the time I choose the pile, I probably didn't think about that. And if you wonder, the pathway taps for black because I have an Urborg on field. Okay, I finally draw my desired land. And here I can at least swing with the broadside bombardiers and maybe even shoot another 4 onto their head. But I think, to be honest, that's already a tough spot. And the fact that they let it resolve probably means they have something. So they're definitely blocking rocks, I would assume. Oh, better. Bowmaster is a good thing. So taking care of the bombardiers. Yeah, and that gives more than an additional blocker. So I decide to go with this trade since the FOMO dies anyways. But now I don't have an additional combat step, which is not too bad, but then again, Croxa's coming around and this is a 2-turn clock. It's not exactly correct to choose Flature, I think. I should have rather discarded Saw in Half. The thought process behind that was that like, in the worst scenario, I could still Saw in Half Roxa, or maybe I draw a random combo out. Nevertheless, I mean, Kefka comes down, and here it's up to me whether or not I find a land, which I don't. So I can't cast a Perix Wave. And it's a 1-1. This hand looks okay. It's a bit slow, but I mean, Gamble can definitely do things. And to be fair, I mean, with all those decks, I don't really have lots of matchup experience. So it's more like based on the overall experience you have collected over the years of playing Magic, which sometimes leads to suboptimal decisions for sure. And in hindsight, this might not have been the most explosive hand. Then again, Inti turn 2, it's fine. Orcish Bowmaster is definitely a good one. Decide to throw that in here in response to the fetch to make sure it comes down. Maybe my opponent is planning on casting a cantrip next turn. You never know. But I think this guy pressures that much on its own. So, on the other hand, it seems there is an interaction spell. No, it's actually a Psychic Frog. And now we have a problem because I kind of have to go for the gamble. The gamble has to find a Solitude, and I feel like I have another turn to bring down my commander. because now is the window that it should resolve. It's tricky. I mean, maybe I should have gone for the. Actually, I don't have to go for the Solitude directly. I mean, I still have the Orc Army token that could block the Psychic Frog. They don't even decide to do that. This time I definitely have enough mana. So my graveyard doesn't look too fancy. Only have the Troll and an unmarked grave in there. And now I can go for the gamble. I'm pretty sure the gamble finds a Solitude. I would expect. And I discard the Pinnacle Monk, which is cool because, now I could go for combat, connect with Terra, and get back the Pinnacle Monk. Now, if Solitude is countered, it's very important my opponent has no subtlety now. If Solitude gets countered, I can just get it back if Terra connects. Which I hope will be the case. It's not necessarily possible anymore because they can just block with the frog now by exiling the 3 cards and then even pump it up to trade with Terra. So, yeah, not the best situation for me. So I took a while to think about whether or not I want to attack. On the other hand, it would be not too crazy if they discard 2 cards to trade with my commander. Then again, this is currently quite a good play. I mean, I have only 3 cards left in hand, and the Psychic Frog on the long run will grant some cards. Oh, and they decide not to go for that. Interesting. I think they did, but seems not to be the case. Maybe there is some reanimation spell. I mean, on the other hand, there could also be a block and there is like some random interaction for the Psychic Frog. But then again, they've still blocked, unless it's necessary to keep the cards in graveyard. So you never know what your opponent is up to. Unholy Heat deals with the Solitude. There's an animated dead for the very same Solitude. That's a brutal line of play. Getting rid of my commander. She has Summoning Sickness next turn. That's what I said in the beginning. Bit of the downside of playing this commander is that it doesn't really do anything directly. Inti, yeah, I'm not sure. I think I should have probably played my commander instead, but here I was hoping to find something, and I do find something, at least having a Collective Brutality. My opponent does not block. If there is a Toxic Deluge around the corner, I think I'm definitely in trouble. Also having a look at her hand. I'm surprised I did not choose to destroy the Solitude, because on the long run this would grant me some additional value with Terra. Here I have a Burned Offering. That's definitely not the card you want to see. So I think I can just swing in give it another counter and try to recycle this burnt offering. Maybe finding something more useful. I mean, at least a fetch land that could result in any of the surveillance, for example. Definitely not too bad. Also being force spike proof, not super crazy. I mean, I know about the Shadow of Doubts, I think. Yeah. So for as long as they're untapped, I should not use the Wooded Foothills. Then again, they can't really afford to cast the Shadow of Doubt whenever I mean, now there's a window in which they could, choosing the Unholy Heat, getting rid of Orcish Bowmaster. And now that I fetch, I decide to fetch as well. That's my window to not fall for the Shadow of Doubt. And as you see, the timer is pretty rough on my side. As I'm said, I mean, I'm more or less back to playing on MTGO, so it's not super effective yet. I'm taking my time to think about certain things, but you know, the timer is always running. And it's a thing that my opponent has 9 minutes more than me. Okay, considering the fact that there is a brainstorm, I can understand why they got rid of the Orcish Bowmaster. 2 and 2. Yeah, probably finding a land and then having a hasty Kefka could be a thing. Question is if that's needed. By the way, the Flamekin Harbinger is a very cool card. Gives me some nice flashbacks. Pretty cool to have a use for that. The Nihil Spellbomb is a complete blowout. That's one of the best cards he could find, I would say, especially now that I drew the Croxa. And it's even worse. Like, I don't use the ability. I mean, I have to use the ability. It's not a May. Mm, but, you know, it's just so awkward. The timing is so awkward. This could have been the card that won me the game, I think, if it wasn't for the spell bomb. Then again, in the first game, I also had like a couple of very good draws my opponent couldn't really deal with. So yeah, I mean, I can't even use Inti's ability. I definitely want to keep up Croxa here. And my opponent is waiting for Terra Trigger to come up. And I am very sure they will wait for me to pay the mana. I should have done that. I think there was a mistake. I mean, now they can just. I mean, now they have to. No, never mind. I don't necessarily have to do this because now I pressure it anyways. So once the second trigger is resolved, I get back priority, and then there is no window in between to crack the spell bomb, so they have to do it now, which they do. And yeah, going down to 3, tight game. As you can see, if it wasn't for the spell bomb, this game would be in my favor, I would say. Having a second Croxa cast Oh, never mind. He could have discarded the consult, to be fair. That was drawn off of the spell bomb. But then again, without the spell bomb, there's no additional draw. So, yeah. Tough game. And it seems that I'm actually losing this because of the timer rather than because I'm actually losing a game. I'm on 21 HP. So this is one of the situations where it wouldn't, in paper, you would have just played it out. Also because that's not the worst ransom, not the best either. Tainted Pact is definitely a good card. Sheoldred's Edict is also pretty good. Maybe I should have decked it differently. Like revealing the Edict with the land and then... But, you don't really want your opponent to have the Tainted Pact. Because either way, it's an answer for Terra here. And with only a couple of lands left, I can't do too much. I like the timer on MTGO. I'm honest about that. It forces you to only play certain decks. I talked about this in the video with Choco actually, that you're not really able to play any MARDU combo decks or like the Tymna Thrasios deck. Mother was not the draw that I was looking for. But you can't play either of those decks. You can't play Azeroth and things like this. That's a bit sad. Then again, you learn to play fast. And yeah, I think it's just for... How do I say that? I mean, that's actually a very deep topic. Maybe we will save that for a later thing, because there's so much to learn if you play Magic on MTGO. It's crazy how much you can improve your overall understanding of the game and all that stuff. And the clock is actually a very relevant part to that, because you don't learn to make decisions under pressure if you're playing in a casual game without any time restriction. And that's what I think is a very valuable, or probably the most valuable part about Magic the Gathering Online. Final thoughts on this game. I have an Unburial Rites for my commander, but my opponent drew another solution, which is called Cling to Dust, that not only ramps them up to some more life, but also doesn't give me the slightest chance to win this game. 12 seconds on the clock. I think this was a very cool match. Thank you very much for tuning in, and see you in the third game with another very fancy deck of which I think you haven't even heard of the commander. At least this was the case for me. And yeah, we'll see each other over there. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.